Hello again and welcome back everybody. This is the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage. You are looking at my Necchi Supernova Ultra Mark II, which is currently disassembled, at least in the area of the hand wheel. And just thought I would make this video. This is sort of a continuation of videos. I'm showing you guys what I'm doing, but I also want to talk about why. Now, this, of course, is a spring-loaded door that holds the little bobbin winder assembly in its tire. But this, of course, is the drive shaft. And I had mentioned to you all that before I was talking about taking off the hand wheel, right? And I was able to get the hand wheel off with a technique I showed. And then it came the time to disassemble the hand wheel. So somewhere hiding behind here is my clutch knob. Okay, so of course there's the clutch knob. This came off earlier and it's got two set screws of its own. And I have, what other parts have I got here? I've got this piece, which of course has the groove. This is why, I was telling you guys a hand wheel is basically a big pulley on a vintage sewing machine for the one of the pulleys that the motor belt goes on, and of course the other pulley that the belt connects to is down here, the little one on the motor. This piece here on this particular Necchi model is inset, so it's like a sort of like a big disc inside of the hand wheel rim. On the other side of the hand wheel is this shaft. Now this shaft is interesting. It goes onto, it is wide enough that it attaches to the drive shaft of the machine, and of course it's got to go all the way through the hand wheel and comes out the other side. And then the threads that you see here are what eventually the clutch knob, when the whole thing is put together, the clutch knob attaches. Now, I took this off, and believe it or not, I didn't take this apart so I could get the belt off, because the belt, in fact, I've shown you guys on videos that I have made of the green and cream Necchi Supernovas. The bracket that the motor attaches to allows you to loosen bolts without removing the motor, and you can move the motor up and down to help with setting the belt tension. And if you bring the motor, if you slide it up enough on this bracket, and again I've demonstrated that in the other videos, you can easily remove a belt, and then you can, depending on whether you prop this open, you can get the belt off. You can get it loose enough. So I don't think you technically have to remove the hand wheel, but I wanted to show you this because Necchi hand wheels are more complex than, say, a Singer hand wheel off a Singer 15 from 1930. And the reason for this is that the way this machine was engineered, all of these pieces sit within very close spacing. Okay, the machine quality of these parts is incredible, and Necchis are known for having extra low vibration because of this. However, that closeness is fine if the hand wheel was removed and the machine were taken in and tuned up every couple of years maybe. But of course most machines weren't, and this machine I believe has sat for a few decades. But this piece here is just incredible. You look at it and you think, wow. But before this is going to go back onto the drive shaft and back inside the hand wheel to reassemble it, the reason I wanted to take this whole machine apart was not just to clean, because most of this back of the hand wheel you don't see, and that's an aesthetic thing, right? But what I'm going to do is if I'm going to clean here. Where's my little rag, little remnant here? So I can clean here, and that's great, but that's for aesthetic purposes, which you may or may not care about. However, one area you do want to clean is the pulley. Now, a pulley can get dust, it can get oil, it can get sometimes when you have old belts that begin to decay, that they'll start to powder and fling little bits of rubber everywhere. But anyway, the pulley needs to be cleaned, and you definitely don't want oil on it because, first of all, you don't know. I can't tell that there's any on here at all. But sometimes people squirt oil all kinds of places thinking they need it there. And this is like, you do not want oil here. So just because I have the hand wheel off, I'll be cleaning the groove itself. And I can do that relatively simply. I have a little bit of a cleaner. You might have different cleaners you want to use. You may have something at home. Just make sure that you test it first. You don't want the cleaner to have any reaction to the paint and coatings. And because all cleaners are formulated a little differently, you want to basically just experiment with that. And you can see me here. Normally, I was taking the rag, but this cotton swab is actually perfectly sized. I can just quickly go around here. And again, it's, there wasn't very much dirt there. That's just for aesthetics. But now I'm going to take here, and I really want to go inside the groove. Okay, now sometimes, I've done this before on some machines when I had it hooked up and I had the motor going. That's not easy to do on the Necchi because the Italian design of this machine, they worked really hard to try to keep every, all the the mechanical parts, hidden away. It was a styling thing, and they went to great effort to do so. Of course, they hid the bobbin winder in this beautiful door. Anyway. Just to show you guys again, I'm just taking this and I'll just turn it around. Cotton swab is perfectly sized for this. It's actually almost the perfect thickness. You can see some of this stuff coming off. And I just take the cotton swab, take the clean end, just keep going. Eventually, you'll do this enough where you won't get much of anything coming off on your cotton swab, and that should be fine. Okay, you want to make sure that it's dry before you install it, and certainly before you put a belt back in it. So I'm just going to come around again, see what I can pull up here. And some of this, I believe, is residue from old past motor belts, which can sometimes just kind of get stuck on there. But the whole point of this is you want this pulley, which is your hand wheel, to be clean. It's really important that you keep it clean because the hand wheel being clean means that your belt will have a better job at forming the friction it needs, because without friction, you're going to have the belt stick or slide, and that's going to impact your ability to get a good stitch and get your machine to do what it was designed to. So again, this is not something that's hard to do, and this is not something you do on a regular basis. Okay, this is a restores technique or an overhaul technique. This is different than just the regular the regular maintenance that you might do to your machine, which is basically cleaning lint and making sure it's oiled properly. Now, this surface is a little interesting. This surface has a kind of a knurled surface to it. It's not smooth. It's purposely, and I believe this is done this way because you want traction. This is the surface of the hand wheel that comes into contact with your bobbin winding tire. This is why this is here. So it's, it looks fine to me. I'm not particularly worried. Okay, now that we've looked at those things, I want to talk to you guys about one of the things that can really help you is once you have this item disassembled and you can get inside of it, one of the things you want to do is you want to take cleaner on the cotton swab and you want to go around the smooth metal surfaces inside, because remember, this shaft has got to, or bushing, whatever you want to call it, it's going to go through the hub and it's very tight. So we're going to make sure that we're cleaning. What are we cleaning? Well, we're basically going to remove, and I'm doing this without alcohol. Where's my alcohol? I need my alcohol for this. I can use cleaner, and cleaner may work just fine, but if you have any varnishing or any oil that's gotten hard, it's oxidized, you'll have much better luck with rubbing alcohol, the isopropyl alcohol I told you guys about. Don't get it on the paint, okay? The great thing about cotton swabs is they typically hold on to whatever you put on them as long as you don't have them totally soaked. Now, what you're seeing is a little bit of grime, but most of what's coming off here is, I'm just dipping this down in the little alcohol jar I have. What you're doing is you're trying to get that old oil off. You want this steel to be cleaned, okay? And then before we put it all together, we will be going back and we'll be putting a layer of sewing machine oil on. And that layer is going to be great because it's going to do what the oil did back in Italy in the 50s, right? It's just way past time to replace it. Okay, I'm just coming again one more time, and one more little go at it. This is not particularly dirty. I'm not getting a lot of gummed up oil here, but there's some residue, and I just wanted to, like I say, let's get that off. It's nice and clean. And while I have this in my hand, I'm going to go in and, like any Necchi hand wheel on a vintage Necchi sewing machine, I've shown you guys before, inside of this wheel is an inner rim. And you can see I just pulled out, this is a piece of, this is basically felt wicking. It's like a big wick. And this one's in good shape. You always want to kind of inspect these, and if it's crumbling or coming apart, you can remove it and you can get new wicking to put inside. But this one is fine. I'm actually, and you can see if I turn this, you'll see here's the end, right? And then it begins again. It's just basically put in a big circle. So I'm just going to go in here and I'm just going to add oil. This design that Necchi used for decades, the reason they did this is that they knew they had all of these parts rubbing against each other, and they wanted lubrication. And I've noticed in Bernina's and some of the other European brands particularly, they use lots of felts, lots of wicks that are used. And you guys are familiar with when I've talked about the Singer 66 and 99 models that have those little red wicks that people often take out because they think it's thread or fabric or lint. Well, that's an example of using a wick to hold oil in a place. Now I'm going to come back. I might as well, while I'm here, I'm just going to put one drop. It's all I need on each side. I put a drop here and a drop on the other rim there. And all I need to do is just I can take my finger and I can just basically, I'm just going to smooth it out. I don't need a lot. Most of the oil I need is already in that wick, and that's going to be wicked out or dispensed out over time as the machine needs it. That was the whole purpose of the wick design. But I just wanted a nice thin film on there. And what we can do while I'm here, go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and clean the inside of this. Now, this is not really going to show because of the way this hand wheel is designed, but we have it here, and why not? Why don't we just clean it out? It's not hard. I'm just wiping it with a little bit of cleaner on a rag. Again, this is not alcohol. Don't put alcohol on a paint finish. It's a very good way to cause permanent harm, and you'll be very unhappy if your paint is ruined and you're the reason. So anyway, so I'll just finish up here. This is again cleaner, and we are just about ready to be done with this. So this part of this overhaul is done. Now we'll take a look at this inner part of the hub here. Just want to make sure there's no fuzz. No, I don't really see anything in here of any great consequence. Not really seeing anything at all. And it looks like this surface right here and this surface touch each other. So if we want to, I can go back to my my alcohol, because I'm actually, whoops, I need some clean clean cotton swab. Going back to the alcohol here, because I should not be dealing with painted, I don't think, or maybe this actually may be what's left. This is steel because there's not much paint on here. So my main concern here is to get this clean. I want a clean surface before I put oil on it. Because remember, this is going to be sitting here for a while, and it's fine. We don't need, the future owner is not going to need to take this apart. They're not going to need to oil this. This is not part of normal sewing machine maintenance. This is an overhaul procedure that's really, really important. But once it's done, whoever the new owner of this machine turns out to be is not going to have to mess with this, really. Not for another 60 years, anyway. Let's see here. I'm going to... Now you can see this side. We also have a steel inner piece that needs to be dealt with. So I'm going to come over here, get some alcohol, and I'm going to go ahead and do what I did with the other piece. And you'll start to see this get shiny as I come around. You can see sort of the difference it makes as you come. Sometimes you won't, if you get a stain in the steel that won't come off, as long as it's not rust and oxidation, and it would be very unusual for this to be, if it were rusted, I probably couldn't have gotten it apart. Sometimes steel will stain over time, and as long as it's smooth and clean, that's okay. I've noticed sometimes you'll see these sort of cloudy discolorations on the steel, but that's all right. Don't let that bother you. You're not going to see it. It's not functional. It's not even sure what's causing the color change in the steel, but whatever that cause is, it's not an issue for us. So I'm going to go back, get some more alcohol on my cotton swab, and I'm just coming around, and this is about a ½ inch, a little less than ½ inch. So make sure you go all the way around, and you just turn it around, and as we come around, what are we doing? It doesn't look like we're doing very much of anything, but what we're actually getting rid of is any old residue of the old oil. And again, I'm going to assume, unless I know otherwise, it is very possible that this has not been taken apart. And even if it were to change a belt, which again, I just mentioned a while ago, you don't have to take this apart to change the belt, thankfully. We're doing it anyway because we want this done. We want to know that the machine is going to be ready when we put it back together. Because that's the whole point of taking it apart, was to make sure we've taken care of any of these areas. Now this inner hub does not have a wick, so I'm just going to put 1 drop of oil, and that's 1 drop. Doesn't seem like much, but guys, remember, we're looking for a thin film here. We're not looking to lubricate the machine itself for running. Okay, and I'm just going to spread this around with my finger, or you could use the cotton swab if you want. Point being, that's done. So what else do we have to do? Now I can wait till I put this back in to clean it. Now I want to go back to my cleaner. The cleaner is going to should be, whatever cleaner you use, should be more gentle than the than alcohol. Alcohol is only for bare metal parts. You really don't want alcohol to hit your paint, because your paint is vulnerable to alcohol, which is a solvent. I'm coming around the edge just because, in fact, almost nothing's coming off. The way this wheel is put together, the edge doesn't really come in contact with much of anything. So the only thing left, I'll take my rag now and go on this section here and just go ahead and clean it. I can clean it again. Sometimes you'll clean something, if you're like me, you forget and you get something on your hands, you have to go back again, but not a big deal. So there's nothing to polish here, and this surface is wonderfully clean. I don't even need alcohol on that, but I will go ahead and just put a very fine film. I don't need to do this now, but I'm just since we're videoing this, and that's just like a ½ drop, right? And then I can do this with it. This really all we need to do there. So, one of the areas that's super important to get clean is in fact the drive shaft, because it too had old oil. And remember, when I say old oil, we're talking, oh God, 60, going on 65 years. And we want this off of here. This is something you want to do anytime you're overhauling or restoring a machine. And I'm just coming, now it looks clean on the camera. You think, well, gosh, that drive shaft looks pretty good to me. But I'm getting, I don't even, there we go. You can see the yellow, that little amber colored stuff. That's old oil. And you say, well, it doesn't look like much. And you're right. It's not much, but it does not take much to make hand wheels freeze and stick to the drive shaft, especially when you are dealing with a machine of this level of refinement. The Necchi company, they created machines with parts that were so close together. They had the ability to do that, and it's one of the great features of the machine. But you know, it's also can present a problem when you are trying to take one apart, and it's, you know, it hasn't been, no one has really dealt with the old oil, and that's what we're doing here. So this may not look like much. Maybe zooming in would help. It may not look like much. You think, well, maybe I'll just skip the step. I really, really strongly suggest that you do not skip this, because this is one of the main reasons we took this apart in the first place, was to get to these parts that were designed to work together. And it, you know, the machine is trying to do its job, but very often we'll have a vintage machine and we think, well, gosh, you know, it should be doing better than it is. That's because the machine is waiting for the service it was engineered for. And you know, again, doesn't look like much, but this is going to really help, because this is going to dry. Then this alcohol, this is the 99% isopropyl, and I'm getting stuff off. And again, this is very little oil. I've seen much worse on machines. I didn't bring much off, but this little bit, that little bit of that amber color I showed you, that's enough to act like glue when you've got metal parts that are this close. Now, of course, this piece is I am particularly interested in, because I want this to be really clean as a whistle. So because it fits over the drive shaft, I am going to give it the same treatment. Let's zoom back out. I'm going to give it the same treatment with the alcohol. So I'm just going to dip my cotton swabs in this alcohol. Now you could do this with a rag. I like the cotton swabs, obviously. Gosh, I should buy, let's see here. And because I can get into small spaces with them. And I'm not even using those. I've shown you guys before, they make a cotton swab that's extra sturdy, and it has a sort of a narrowed tip. I honestly don't even remember what they're called. I think I've shown them to you, and I haven't gotten any in a while, but probably will get some the next time I'm in a pharmacy or somewhere that sells them, and I can use those when I have particular need for them. But anyway, you can see what I'm doing here, guys. I'm basically going around, and when your cotton swab gets dirty, just get another one. Just assume you're going to go through a lot of cotton swabs. Not as many as I do, unless you overhaul as many machines as I do. Those of you who like overhauling things, I don't care if it's a sewing machine or what it is, cotton swabs can be great. One thing you don't want to do is, and that's even true with those fine tip cotton swabs that are a little bit better quality, don't use the cotton swab on something that has threads like these bolts, okay? Because they're going to snag and they're going to get on there, and you're going to have to take the bolt and you're going to have to take a brush and make sure there's no cotton fibers hung up in those threads, because when you go to put this back, we're going to be tightening this. You just don't want to create silly, unnecessary problems for yourself. So avoid anything that's not smooth if you're using these cotton swabs. Okay, so I'm just going around, and you know, again, my whole purpose here is I want to get rid of old oil. And you say, well, I don't even see anything. Well, you know what? I don't see much of anything either, but I know it's here because this part was oiled in 1958, 59 or so. And it came out of the factory. Nothing wrong with the oil they used, but oil does oxidize over time. It takes a long time, obviously, or it would dry out on us too soon. But, and again, once you get to a piece like this, you could, if you wanted, you can take the rag and dip it in the alcohol. So I'll do that. It's not, like I say, this is one of those areas where you need to use your instinct or your preference, right? So I'm just going to come around, and again, it doesn't look like anything, but if you have an old part like this that was designed to move against another part, it's going to have oil. It has to have some kind of lubrication. Now, you'll notice threads on this end. There are threads, and they go back down this collar or this bushing about, wow, a little more than a half an inch or so. That's because this is where the clutch knob screws into. But we're going to come from the other side, and we are going to do our little cotton swab in the alcohol thing, and I'm going to come here, and as soon as I can feel with the cotton swab when I'm getting toward the threads, and that's where I stop. Now you can really see it here, guys. See, I swore there was stuff here, and there sure is. It's you can see it more readily on this on when I'm going on the inside here, right? But that same stuff, some of it was on the shaft, and we took that off. So again, sometimes you're thinking, gosh, I just want to get this done. If you ever get in a hurry when you're trying to do something like overhauling or conserving, restoring anything vintage, you get in a hurry, it's usually a recipe for unhappiness. You will do something, or the machine will do something to make you really unhappy. So if you want to avoid that, you can see I'm still pulling old oil out. If you want to avoid that, take your time. Even if you've done it before. I mean, I'm not particularly rushing this, and I've worked on these machines and these particular models before. But again, I'm just going around and going back over the areas I've already touched, because I can tell that the thick layer of old oil, well, it's thick, and I'm using alcohol, and as I do this, it's dissolving it's pulling the old oil off and pulling it onto the cotton swab. But I'm needing to do it, it's not just one and done here. You want to, this oil does dissolve, the old oil, but it's softening. So just go back, and you said, well, how do I know when I've gotten enough off? Well, you shouldn't be getting much of anything left. I'm on your cotton swab, right? So now I'll take the other end. I've gotten both ends that I've dipped in alcohol. It's getting better, right? And eventually you're going to, it's not going to take forever. Eventually you will discover that your cotton swab is going to come out, or whatever you're using. I don't really have anything else that I could think of to use in this case. Maybe you do. Anyway, watch what's coming off, and again, once your cotton swab is getting pretty clean looking, you should be okay. We'll see, there's a little spot here right between where my those two bolts go in. Okay. Sometimes you take these machines apart and you think, well, why did they do it this way? But they had reasons. And, when I look at machines like this one, whatever this was, they could have done this more cheaply, but they didn't. This was a very expensive thing to put together. And I've talked to you guys when we talk about, if you look at my videos that talk about hybrid machines, I go over how it was over time, sometimes decades, when consumer products like sewing machines and just about everything else we buy, over time they were cheapened. They didn't happen overnight, but a bolt here, a lever there, over time they were under pressure. Pull the cost out. Let's get our costs down, because the only alternative was to raise the price. And of course, they were dealing with all kinds of competition. Now, I've done pretty good. If I come over here, I don't see any fuzz or hairs. Now, if you want to clean this part, you can. Mine doesn't really have any old oil that I can see. I don't see discoloration. But let's say you're not sure. You can take something like this rag remnant. You can dip it. I'll just do this here. I'm just dipping the end in the alcohol. And then you can take that and put it in here. And then just sort of, twist it around. And it should be fine. You shouldn't get much of anything. If you got a real shredding piece of fabric, I suppose it could leave a piece of thread. But you can get your flashlight and shine it down in there if you want. And you can also do that. You can just blow in there to make sure there's nothing in there, because if you leave anything inside this bushing, when it goes back on, you're going to have problems, because again, the space is very snug. It's a sign of quality, but it just makes for extra time doing this. So when I go to, what have we got left here in terms of putting back together? We're going to put this back together. Anyway, I just wanted to show you guys this. This is me cleaning the parts. This is why I took it apart in the first place. Next video, I will show you guys. We will put it all back together. That includes putting on the belt as well. Thanks for watching, everyone. Whether you have a Necchi Supernova Ultra Mark II or not, I hope this was helpful to you. And some of the things that we did today really can apply, generally speaking, to any vintage device. Anything that was designed to be serviced, there's service, and then there's full tuning, going over. And in the service manual for these things, there is information on how to do this. Manuals are not always the best illustrated documents, and the fact is, real machines that are designed to last are supposed to have maintenance. The good news is, if you're interested in using one of these, or even purchasing this machine for yourself, is that you don't need to do a lot of these things. And I try to in these videos, call out the difference. What do you need to do for the machine just because you own it and love to use it, and what do you need to do when it's time to overhaul it? And those are two quite different things. So anyway, if you are thinking about a Necchi, and you vintage Necchi like this one, and you want to sew with it, don't worry, you do not have to disassemble your hand wheel as part of your normal taking care of the machine. They actually require very little care. Cleaning your feed dog area and keeping it free of lint, and oiling the machine before projects, that's pretty much almost it. Maybe replacing a light bulb. So thanks for watching, guys, and we will see you in the next video, where I believe I am going to be putting this all back together.